Hi, Dan from Cloudsmith here. In this video, we will take a look at how you can use Harness CD to deploy artifacts from a private Cloudsmith repository. Harness is a continuous deployment platform that allows you to easily automate the deployment of your software to your infrastructure and environments. The Harness platform has two main components. First, the Harness Manager. The Harness Manager at app.harness.io is where you store your deployment configurations and manage your pipelines. You use the manager to start and view your pipeline's execution. And then the Harness Delegate. The Harness Delegate is software you install in your environment, either on a cloud platform or even locally, and run as a service. The Delegate connects to the Harness Manager and executes your pipeline tasks on your chosen cloud providers, artifact repositories, and monitoring platforms. Installing the Harness Delegate and setting up a pipeline from scratch in the Harness Manager is beyond the scope of this demo, but it's very easy to get started. Harness provide excellent documentation and tutorials to get you up and running very quickly. In this demo, we will focus on configuring a private Cloudsmith repository as an artifact repository, a Docker registry in this case, and then deploying a Docker image. So let's get started. I've logged into the Harness Manager, and the first thing I have configured is a cloud provider. I have added AWS here as my cloud provider and provided the AWS credential for the AWS user I will use. The next thing we would configure is a connector. Connectors are where you integrate repositories, registries, or monitoring tools. This is the important piece as far as integrating a Cloudsmith repository goes. I've already configured a Cloudsmith repository as a Docker registry here, and all you need to do this is your Cloudsmith registry URL, your Cloudsmith username, and your encrypted password. It all just works, as Cloudsmith repositories are fully compatible as native Docker registries. I've added my Cloudsmith API key as an encrypted secret in the included Harness Vault, but you could also use a Cloudsmith entitlement token. Tokens provide read-only access to a Cloudsmith repository, and we have a separate video linked in the description below that provides more information on these. Next, we will take a look at the application that we have configured. Applications are how you organize a deployment project in Harness. The first thing that we define for our application is a service. Services represent your applications in microservices, and this is where you declare the artifacts that you wish to use, any configuration variables, and container specifications. You can see here that I have selected my Cloudsmith artifact repository as the source server. And for my Docker image name, I have entered my Cloudsmith organization name, my repository name, and my Docker image name. I've also chosen to deploy this image to Amazon ECS. Next, we define an environment for this application. An environment represents your deployment infrastructure, such as test, staging, or production. I have defined a test infrastructure here on my chosen cloud provider, and you can see the details here, such as the region and the cluster that will be used. Then we define one or more workflows. A workflow includes the service and environment we defined previously and uses these for the deployment steps. There are different types of workflows, such as basic, canary, and blue-green. Here we are using a blue-green workflow that sets up an AWS load balancer and upgrades our containers from our Docker image. You can also add things like rollback steps and notifications. We then set up our pipeline. Now this is a very simple single-stage pipeline that just runs the workflow we looked at. But of course, in a real deployment, you'd likely have many pipeline stages. And then finally, we have configured a trigger, which will automatically start the pipeline when a new artifact is pushed to our Cloudsmith repository. Okay, let's try this out and see how it all works. Here I have a simple Python Flask project that just prints a simple message on screen. Let's go ahead and make a modification to that message and then save it. Now I need to build a new Docker image from this project, and then I add a couple of tags to this image. I'll tag it as version 2.0.0, and I will also add a latest tag. All that is left for me to do here is just push this Docker image and both tags to our Cloudsmith repository as you would do with any Docker registry. That should be both tags pushed now. If we go ahead and have a look at our Cloudsmith repository, we can see the Docker image that we just pushed. This Docker image should now be available to Harness. Harness will poll any configured artifact repositories used in a trigger every 2 minutes to check for the presence of a new artifact, so our pipeline should start to execute quickly. Let's take a quick look at my ECS cluster before the Harness deployment pipeline executes. You can see there is currently one running service with 2 tasks. Let's see what that looks like if we access this cluster in a browser. Okay, that's the message this application currently presents. If we now go back to the Harness Manager, we can see that our pipeline has started to execute. We can follow the stages in our pipeline and the steps in our workflow here, and see the corresponding log output. The deploy or upgrade container step is now running, and I'll just speed the video up here a little bit as it can take a couple of minutes to complete. That's it completed now, and you can see the container IDs reported for our new containers. Let's go back to the AWS ECS console to just confirm this. We can now see our new service and the 2 tasks that were created. They are up and running. If we access this cluster in a browser, we can see that the message presented has now been updated. Our automated deployment to AWS ECS was successful. Our Docker image was pulled from our private Cloudsmith repository, and it was all managed and controlled by Harness. I hope that this short video showed you how easy it is to deploy artifacts from your own private repository using Harness. If you'd like to try this out for yourself, just go to cloudsmith.com where you can sign up for a free trial. And remember, to be awesome and automate everything.